Okay guys, so this is the final video I'm going to do on text animations. In this one we're just going to really iron out some of the details with the text animations. We're going to add a little bit more pizzazz, just another idea or two that I had. But the main thing is we're going to make the text layers much easier to customize. 20-minute video, you might use 200 text layers. So we want these to be so easy to come in, do our adjustments, and then get out, add them into our final video. Let's start with that. So we've got our text animation layer here. So my first idea was this. I wanted to add some of the Art Deco design elements that we included in that we've already made. This is something I made earlier. This is very Art Deco. This is just a shape layer with some lines spiraling out from a center and just rotating. So very basic, but if we play around with it, it can look like some Art Deco lighting. So what we'll do, we've copy and pasted it into our composition, bring it down just above the background of the text layer. And what I'm trying to do here is I only want to see the light rays where the background is of the text layer. So we'll do something that's very similar to what we did in the other videos with regards to only seeing the text on the background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize that I've got the alpha layer that we made before, which as a reminder, it just means we can only see the text in the places where the background is. So if you notice, as the word man comes in, it's cut off by the line. So that's what we want to do here with the light. So there's a nice easy way to do this. We're going to go to our lights layer. We're going to go to track matte on lights. We're going to go to alpha. And that's that done. Fantastic. I've messed around with the opacity as well. So we'll notice it's at 20%. Here it is at 100. That actually looks quite cool, actually. Maybe I'll keep it at 100%, or maybe we'll go in the middle. Let's go to 50%. That's nice, there we go. So let's go on to automation. So we're going to start talking a bit more in depth about expressions now. And all expressions are in After Effects is they are mathematical functions which relates certain qualities of one layer to the qualities of another layer, and you can use functions and you can use maths and algebra to kind of dictate the relationship between these functions. It's a very complicated way essentially of saying we're linking the properties of this layer to the properties of that layer. For instance, if I was to say the scale of an object is equal to 80, that's an expression. That is a very simple expression, but it simply means that the scale of an object is 80%. So for instance, to get an idea of what expressions look like, let's look at the light layer that I brought into After Effects earlier. So here we are, the lights are rotating. And you could quite easily do that with just going to the rotate function and putting a stopwatch at 0 degrees and putting a stopwatch at 360 degrees over a certain amount of time. But there's much more elegant ways to do it, and this is particularly useful because you can build on this knowledge that I'm about to give you to allow you to do more complicated expressions in After Effects. So as you can see, you've got the rotation here on the shape layer, and it's changing with time, and you can see some kind of mathematical stuff over here that looks a little bit too complicated. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that, and as you can see, there's nothing happening in the rotation. So let's have another look at it. So we're going to go to rotation, and we're going to go to the stopwatch. I'm going to hold Alt, I'm going to click on the stopwatch. Fantastic. So what I could do is if I wanted the rotation to change with time, for instance, I could quite easily just go time. So what that means now is that the value for rotation is given by whatever point in the timeline we are. So if we look, we're at 5.14 seconds, and the rotation is at 5.6 degrees. And what you'll notice is that this isn't much of a rotation. It'll be very, very slow because time isn't fast enough. So if we want to speed it up, we can come up with a relationship between time and rotation. So if what I want to do is I want it to be, say, 5 times faster, all I do is time times 5. Great. So now our rotation is going quite fast. That's almost what I want, actually. I'd probably up that a little bit. Perhaps I'd maybe make this time times 8. There we go. That's a nice pace in my opinion. So if we unhighlight that layer again, and if we just add that track matte back again. So we have just composed our very first expression. So we've essentially related the rotation of this light ray to the time of the sequence. We're going to now look into some slightly more complicated expressions, which makes it nice and easy for us to make this composition very streamlined and allows us to control all the features of the text layer through just one layer. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to new, I'm going to go adjustment layer. I'm going to hit layer name because I want to see the layer names. Let's call that layer effects. And let's go to the layer we just made. We're going to call this layer control. Control. Let's think about what we want to be able to control. So I want to control the amount of lines that are on the text layer, because you know there's going to be times where we're going to say something like Masayoshi-son was 56. I don't know. But something that's going to be shorter, where we're not going to need 3 lines. So we're going to want to control the opacity of these lines. We're also going to want to control the length of the lines, because as you can see, World for 3 days has a little bit of extra space on the right and the left, so I want to be able to hone that in pretty easily. I'd like to control from one place the animation. I'd like to be able to control when the line comes in and when the line goes out. Let's look at doing that. So let's start with the length of the lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Effects, Expression Control, and I'm going to go to Slider Control. And as you can see, it puts an effect. If I move it left, the value goes up, but nothing actually happens because we haven't assigned anything to this yet. So let's put it back to 0. I'm going to name this line 1 length. So I'm going to go make this a little bit bigger, because there's going to be some maths that we have to put in here. So we're going to want to be able to see all these things. So we're going to go drop down our shape layer. We're going to go to group 1, which as we see is our top line. Fantastic. We toggle that on and off. We can see that's what we're doing. I'm going to go to the trim paths that's on that particular line, and if we see exactly what that does, if I bring this in, that just gets rid of the line. Perfect. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to alt click on end, and nice and simple, I'm going to pick whip, this pick whip here, I'm going to put it on slider. And as we can see, the line's now gone. But what we can do is we can bring it back. So if we put 100, as in 100%, the line's back. If we put 60, as in 60%, there's the line. That's how we get the end of the line working with the controller. We're going to also want to get the front of the line working with the controller, in which case I'm going to go to the start on the trim paths. I'm going to press Alt, I'm going to click, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to pick whip to the slider, but instead of going just to that composition, I'm going to go 100 minus. So what that's saying is 100% minus whatever the value is of this. Nothing's happened, as you can see, but if I was to press 80, both sides of the line now come in. So it centralizes the line, so it's always in the center of the composition, and we don't have to nudge it left and right to obviously make sure it aligns. So if you've noticed, we've still got this light layer in the background. That's because the alpha isn't connected to the background layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link the alpha expressions to the background layer, so it all works in conjunction with each other. So if I was to now go to my control layer, if I was to go down to 80%, boom. Now we've got the alpha working alongside the background layer. And now we're going to do the same with line 2. I'm going to duplicate this effect. So line length 2, line length 3. What I'm going to go to is I'm going to go back to group 1, and I'm going to copy and paste this expression. I'm going to go to end here. I'm going to alt click, and I've just copy and pasted the expression in there. But at the minute, if we just click away from this, this will be governed by the first effect. So when we try to affect the length of line 1, it will also affect the length of line 2. And we don't want that. We want them to be independent. So what I'm going to do is see where it says quotation, line 1, length, quotation. We're just going to change that to line 2. And if we click that, now that function is applied to this effect, line length 2. And we're going to do exactly the same on line length 3. Perfect. So now these should all work fine. There we go, and that is functioning perfectly. Now we need to do the start layers as well, the start of the lengths. We're going to go 100 minus this comp that we created for group 1. We're going to put it in group 2 as well. Alt click on start, copy and paste that in, change line length, line 1 length to line 2 length, and now we're going to go to do the same on length 3, copy and paste, change that to 3. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to link the alphas as well. We're going to take the start, we're going to alt click, pick whip you to this. And we're going to pick whip you to this. Fantastic. And we're going to do the same with group 3. So I appreciate there's a lot going on there. So you might have to go back and watch this a few times, just kind of see how all the layers link together. But if we go to the control now, looks like layer 1's working, layer 2's working, And lo and behold, layer 3 is working. So now we're going to want to do opacity, because there's going to be times where we're only going to want to see, say, 2 lines. If it's a shorter sentence, we're not going to want all 3 lines. And what we're going to do is we're going to assign a function up here in this control layer and assign it to the opacity of this line. So we're going to go to expression controls. We're going to checkbox control. And I'm going to go to, well, I'm going to rename this first. So I'm going to say line 1 on/off. Make this big again, go down to the text background, and essentially I'm going to go to the stroke, which is the thing that's giving the fill to the line or the color. So if we get rid of that, we get rid of this, the background. So I'm going to make this big again. I'm going to want to go opacity. So we're going to go want to alt click on this. And what we're going to do here is what's called a conditional if-else statement. So what I really want to do is I want to say that if that checkbox that we put on the control layer, let's go back to that, if this is off, then the line is off. If this is on, then the line is on. So there is a very easy way to do that, but it just requires some slightly more advanced coding. The thing is with expressions, they need to be exactly how After Effects understands them. So if you struggle with getting this to work, it's a lot of the time it'll be down to just how you're formatting. Okay, so I'm going to start with this. And just follow around me and I'll try and explain it as we go. So I'm going to assign a variable. So that essentially means I'm going to make it what would be a really bulky expression. Say if I was to pick whip to this checkbox, that's really long. That's this comp layer control effect line 1 on off checkbox. So I'm going to want to make the expression a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to assign a variable which is var, and I'm going to call the variable check. And then I'm going to say equals that. So that just means we've now assigned this on-off function as a variable, and we're calling it check. So now for the remainder of the expression, we can just refer to it as check. So what we're going to say is if, open brackets, check is equal to, and for the expression to make sense, you need 2 equals, 1. 1 simply means it's a binary for on, so it's either 0 or 1. If check equals 1, then you need this squiggly little bracket. We're going to go down, and you'll notice it's indented. That's what we want. We want it to indent the variable. If check equals 1, we're going to say 100. So that means if this box is checked, the opacity needs to be 100. Then we get a little colon, little semicolon. Else, other side of the little bracket, 0. Okay, great. So we've got variable check equals this comp dot layer control effect line 1 on off checkbox, which is essentially just assigning this checkbox to a nice easy word like check. So it just means if the checkbox is on, the opacity is 100. Otherwise, it's always at 0 opacity. So let's see what that looks like. Actually, our line's already disappeared, which is exactly what we want. We click that checkbox, lo and behold, she's returned. Fantastic. And we'll notice that the alpha hasn't actually updated either. So we need to do the same thing as we did before. We need to go to the alpha, grab ourselves a pick whip, go down to opacity, and there we go. There's a link now. So that's gone as well. So I'm going to go ahead and link up all the strokes of the alpha to the actual layer. And so let's bring back that top line for now, because we obviously need it. And we're going to do this with the other 2 layers. There's a nice quick way of doing this. We do not have to assign, come up with expressions every single time, because the expressions of these ones are all very, very similar. So I'm going to go back to group 2. I'm going to go, group 1, sorry, which is our line 1. I'm going to go down to stroke. I'm going to steal this expression. Fantastic. Copy and paste that in here. Close down my group. Let's copy and paste the expression for opacity in here. And then same as before, all we need to do is change that 1 digit to 2. And let's get rid of it. Boom, she's working. Group 3, opacity, alt click, change that digit. Fantastic. So now we have a fully customizable opacities of our lines. So they work perfectly. So the last thing I want to autonomize into this layer is the animation of the background layer. So if we go to U, all we did before is we just assigned keyframes, which is fine, but it's not a particularly elegant way, and you have to drop down into this every time and be there like, oh, how do I, I've got to animate this, I've got to split it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my control layer. I'm going to put in a new animation effect, expression control, and we're going to go another slider control. So we're going to name this animation end. Oh, start. And then we're going to put a new one, expression control, slider control, and then animation end. Beautiful. So we're going to go alt-click on the pick whip, assign that to the slider control animation start. Sorry, that was my bad. And then we're going to associate the end function with animation end. It might seem counterintuitive because these are the opposite, but essentially if we up the start, then the other side of the line will come in and it will get rid of the text. So it's a bit there's a bit of a flip on this one. So I've got that working, put that 100%, also obviously it's all the way there, all the way to the end, 0, there's nothing there, got 20, we're 20% of the way there. So we still have to keyframe these, obviously we can't get around that, but at least it's all in one layer now. So I'm just going to animate it now, go to animation start, we'll go to the end, well, we'll drag that 100% to the end, we're going to go 0 here, and then this should just, there we go, beautiful, beautiful. Drag it out a little bit, F9, give it some ease in, and then once the animation is about done, I'm going to want the text to leave, so we'll just drag that out and then drag this to 100%. So if we look see what this looks like now, and we see Masayoshi Son was the richest man in the world for 3 days. Beautiful. Comes in, and it goes out. There's one more thing that I'd probably do, because for instance, if we were to get rid of line 1, that's fine, but obviously now everything's off center. So we're going to want some kind of control. So what we're going to do is we're going to go expression control, we're going to go slider control again, and we're going to go Y axis offset. We're going to make sure the alpha layer is parented to the text background. We're going to make sure the text is parented to the text background. We're going to make sure the lights parented to the text background, and we're going to make sure that the countdown is parented to the text background. If I was to go to the text background, go to position, I could shuffle this up, shuffle it down. All I want to do is I'm going to want to go to this control layer, and I'm going to want to go separate the dimensions on the text background. I'm going to alt-click on the Y function, and I'm just going to pick whip this to the slider. That's not going to be quite right yet, because if we click away, suddenly it jumps up there. That's because it's just taken the 0 as the final value, but we're going to want to do a bit of maths on it to make that work. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to look at what the Y value is right now. It's 955.5. Let's go 955.5, and then we'll go plus, and we'll get rid of this transform Y, and we're going to pick whip you to slider offset. So if we move that around, that is all governed by this function now. Fantastic. So if I was to, for instance, get rid of that top line because I haven't got long enough text, I'm going to shuffle you up, and then it's in line again. Perfect. And the final thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up this composition so it's nice and easy for us to only use what's necessary. So I know I'm never going to need to do anything with the posterized time effect, so I'm going to click this little shy guy, which I've already done. I'm going to do the same with the alpha because I'm not going to need to affect that anymore. The text, I will definitely need to change that. So I'm going to keep that unshied. The light, that can be shied. Countdown timer, we won't need the countdown timer again for future text, so we'll probably just make that easily deletable later on. And the text background, that's the same, that can be shied. So we click that, and now we literally have 3 layers, and we know that everything here needs to be edited. And as I say, it's now fully customizable. So that will really help us pressing into the rest of the video and help us nice and quickly work through all of our text layers.